Here are your hosts, Derick G and AJ.
The UFC's flyweight division has a new contender on its hands right here. We're talking about Amir Albazi, the prince, the man who was fighting in the main event against Kara-France. Close decision, split decision, probably not the performance that he wanted to prove to the world that he's ready for the next title shot. But that's neither here nor there. The man got the dub, and breaking it down with me, as always, folks, another episode of the Bloody Water Podcast. We got my man, the Santa Fe Bomber himself, the New Mexico native. A man who, on a couple of different fights going on the card, might have said they got some robbery reports to look into. What are you thinking, bro?
Derick, I posted about it on Twitter, folks. If you're not following along, make sure you are on Twitter, because my boy Derick does post a lot of the live action as well, and I was out there doing it, man, and there's a couple instances in which a lot of people were screaming robbery, but, you go back and you watch, and it's an interesting one. It was an interesting card. Derick, what do you think? Is there a lot of shenanigans afoot?
Well, speaking of that, man, I woke up this morning refreshed, right? Nice night of sleep, got my mind in order, got the REM sleep going, and I woke up and said, you know what, a couple of these fights that I wanted to scream robbery on, that was clear, what are we talking about? I don't think it is that clear. And I think that, once again, and I hate to beat this drum over and over and over again, scoring criteria simply is not clear enough amongst the consensus people who are watching to truly make these decisions. So I just want to touch on it really quickly before we break all of this stuff down, man. But Kara-France, Amir Albazi, let's at least talk about the main event. I don't think that it's fair right now, after my nice night of sleep, I don't think it's fair for anybody to call robbery on either side. What do you think?
I agree, Derick. It's such a close fight. It's hard to really pick yourself on one side of that fence. I agree, man. Okay. I was actually just watching this one right before we jumped on this, because I was in the same boat. Was it a robbery? Was I really thinking that? Or was it tainted thinking, going for your guy? Very close fight nonetheless.
That's it. So with that being said, folks, let's talk about the scoreboard below. 49-39 and 2 for me, 54-34 and 2 for my man AJ. You don't see any winner graphic because there was no winner this week. And without any further ado, let's talk about the outcome. All right, AJ, let's talk about Bloody Water Podcast consensus picks right here. Alex Caceres, Kara-France, Karine Silva. Now, while it's fair to say we did not go 3 for 3, we did go 2 for 3, and I think that is meaningful. We came a hair away from going 3 for 3 with Kara-France, given it was such a close fight, and I want to take this due diligence to ask you once again, like I normally do, if you had the chance to switch your pick and go back to Albazi, not knowing the outcome, do you think that would have been a wise choice at the point, or do you think that this still was a good bet, Kara-France here?
Derick, I still think this was a good bet going for Kara-France. There was moments in the fight where either camp could say they got the better of the man. Mm-hmm. So going back, doing that revisionist history, I still think it was a safe bet. What about you?
I 100% think it was a safe bet. I think that given, if this was another night with another set of judges, I think Kara-France could have definitely won the fight. And I think that it was hung in the balance to where everything was predicated on kind of that fifth round, where that's what it came down to, right? So with that being said, didn't hit on the main event, but Alex Caceres versus the surging Pineda, and then Karine Silva, just a phenom who says, let me snatch your ankles up, I'm popping knees, I'm doing the whole nine. But this is what matters right here, the prop bets. Not our hottest night, right? But there were a couple looks that we hit on. So Zaleski dos Santos, I didn't have enough room to put decision because these dudes got just ridiculously long last names, but we hit on the decision, hit on the Alex Caceres decision. You went for a lot of finishes. There weren't a lot of finishes on the card, but you did hit on that Karine Silva submission. Now, AJ, that lasted all of 20 seconds of a fight, and we were over here bragging about how Ketlen Souza could be the one fighter to put Karine Silva's her game plan on pause or whatnot. This is my quick question before we truly break it down. Do you think that there was something pre-existing with Souza going into the fight to where her knee got popped like that? Because from my experience, looking at the way that the submission was being kind of cranked on, there wasn't anything fully developed enough for a legit knee to pop out like that. Like, that shouldn't have happened just mechanically. So what do you think?
Yeah, Derick, and just from the jiu-jitsu standpoint, I got to take your perspective on this one a little more weight, but at least from a physiological standpoint, it looked like it popped a lot easier, or maybe just Karine Silva has a hell of a squeeze, but definitely looked like there was some stuff going on pre-existing, because it was a very fast tap, nonetheless a very fast pop.
Yeah, don't forget about that, folks. We're going to touch on that a little bit further, but with that being said, one more look at it. 3-2 a pop, so it was an even week for us, and I don't think that we need to talk about any more of that stuff. Let's just jump into the recap. But before we do that, folks, if you have not subscribed yet, I think we just hit 575 subscribers, AJ, bro. So we're like almost there to 600, folks. Keep on smashing the subscribe button. Keep showing it to your friends, sharing it with your friends, because don't forget, this is your favorite fighter's favorite fight show, and this is where you come to get a real Fight Junkies analysis into the MMA game, man. You got real life perspective. You got behind the scenes analysis with my guy on Twitch. AJ, talk to the people about where you're at on Twitch, and then we'll jump into the picks.
Twitch.tv/Santa Fe Bomber, folks. And Derick said it best. Favorite fighter's favorite fight show isn't just a tagline. It's the truth, because we're in it grinding just like y'all are. We love this sport from the jump, man. Even if it was still backyard scraps, me and my boy Derick would still be very excited talking about it. And that's why we love this, man.
Maybe we need to go hit up Street Beefs, go get a sponsorship with Street Beefs, and just start breaking them down. But all right, folks, let's talk about this main card. Let's get it.
Have you seen that replay, buddy? Your head was bouncing around like a pinball machine.
Time for some main card breakdown,
Courtesy of your hosts, Derick G and AJ.
All right, man. Amir Albazi, he squeaked out the decision. Now, I said it earlier. This probably isn't the performance that he wanted to show the world, to say, hey, I'm ready for that title. Because he kind of comes in with this menacing approach of, I'm the next champion, kind of Chimaev-esque, right? But Kai Kara-France gave him a hell of a battle. And I did a synopsis on this fight, and I want to know if you agree with me on this, AJ. I think that, in my opinion, rounds 2 and 3, give that to Amir Albazi. Rounds 4 and 5, give that to Kai Kara-France. And it was all predicated on how round 1 was scored. Would you agree, or do you think it's a little different than that?
No, I would agree, especially because in those rounds 2 and 3, I forget if I think it was 2, where Albazi had that deep rear naked choke in, man. He was controlling a lot of the positions, but I agree with you. In 4 and 5, Kai Kara-France really started to turn the tide in his favor, run away with it. You know, we always go back, we wish the last rounds counted a little bit more, because the end of the fight, all that stuff always is said. But at the same time, the judges, it's all on the judges and which judges are there that night, which creates a little bit of uncontinuity, a little bit of contention. Yeah, I agree with you, Derick.
Yeah, so that's what's tough about it, is because I think it's a little bit deeper than that too, right? Because round 1, if it was a coin toss, like I said, out of 10 fights, they might have scored it 10 different ways, whatever the case may be. But I think the other thing that factored into this was the approach that I was kind of talking about on the pre-show, where I said Amir Albazi, what's the most dangerous factor about him is he has an ability to get it to the mat whenever he wants. I didn't say that he will get it to the mat, but that ability freezes up your striking, and it did to Kai Kara-France the thing that showed. You put him on the back foot, basically. You relegated him to the back foot the entire fight. He had his moments where he would blitz in front, but then he'd go right back to the back foot. Visually, AJ, I think we have to start taking into consideration that kind of wins you fights. You're dictating where the fight is taking place. You're pushing him up against the cage. You might not be winning, but you're pushing him up against the cage. You're saying, hey, this is where I want the fight to take place. And Kai Kara-France, for a lot of the fight, man, he didn't have a lot of answers for that. So if you had to categorize that in a scoring criteria, is that cage control? Is that aggressiveness? What do you call that?
I would say control. It's dictating where the fight takes place, because you're right, Derick. Especially, I don't think it helps that right before the fight, all the UFC is doing is promoting that big right hand of Kara-France. It shows every highlight. This guy's pushing forward. This guy's controlling the pace. And when Albazi takes that from him, it does snag a little bit of that steam. And cage control, octagon control, whatever you want to call it, I do think it's starting to come into at least a little more consistently judged in the eyes. There's some fights we'll go back where, TJ Dillashaw, Corey Sandhagen. I believe that was the one where, Corey Sandhagen the whole time doing damage, but TJ Dillashaw has the control. Now we see other fights where it's the opposite. I think it's starting to matter a little bit more, especially when your style of fighting is always on the front foot. At least the judges are seeing now he's on the back. Now it's something different. I like that.
And that's the thing, man, is that it's like Kai Kara-France, it felt to a degree like he was landing more damage. You can't argue it any other way. He landed more significant strikes by a heavy amount. It was 99-43 in favor of Kai Kara-France. He outthrew Albazi by 200 strikes, but yet he still loses, right? So that's when we say, all right, it's not just about the pitter-patter shots. You have to really hurt damage. He hit some good elbows, as you alluded to, and all that. But Albazi, once again, optically, he just I felt like Albazi's moments were far and few in between in some rounds, but when you rack up points early on, it's easy to be able to falter off towards the end and still get the win. So at the end of the day, robbery report? I don't think so. I don't think so, man. I think Kai France needs to find a way to not let these grapplers or these people with the heavy pressure keep them on the back foot for all 5 rounds, right? Because if Albazi was relegated to the back foot for a couple of different rounds, don't you think that the everything would have flipped on its head?
Oh, 100%. Even the moments where Kara France was able to, get Albazi off his back, get him on the ground, control, like we were saying, throwing those big elbows, cutting him up. I think it was round 3, and still, I would have still given that round to Albazi because it was just a random last 30 seconds where he was able to not actually have the control. But for the whole, 4.5 minutes, he was still working his game plan.
And I'm glad that they still give Albazi the round because I remember in that round when they went to the corners, even the corner said, bro, you won that. That was the last 30 seconds, bro. That doesn't mean nothing. You won that round. Because that's the thing. It's a 5-minute round. What happens in the last 30 seconds is not going to dictate or swing the fight if it's not impactful enough. Either way, I want to ask you now implications, right? Amir Albazi looked fantastic on the feet. He kind of used this as I could have took this to the mat whenever I wanted. I wanted to have fun. I was showing that I could stand with anybody on the feet. And if you could stand with Kai France on the feet for 15 or for 25 minutes, you are proving a pretty good point. Was this a display that convinces you that if he fought a Brandon Royval or a Brandon Moreno right now, that he'd be able to come up victorious?
It's interesting because with Moreno, you do also have to worry about that wrestling and that pressure. But if he's able to do that, even to a Brandon Royval, make them worried about his takedowns and put them on the back foot and control them, yeah, I think that's more of a contender we're thinking about now. But can he do that against somebody who's more of a wrestler than Kai France started off? That's kind of what makes this interesting. So I'd like to see it, especially against, like you said, Derek, a Brandon Royval, somebody who's not exactly at the exact top, at the pinnacle, like a Moreno, but close and somewhat similar styles, as well as very dangerous on the feet, arguably a little more creative than just the big right-handed Kai France. Adds a little bit of mix there. I'd like to see it.
Well, what I think that the unfortunate part about the outcome of this fight is that the person who got hurt most wasn't Kai France, it wasn't Albazi. I think it was Brandon Royval. Because Royval was that consensus, I'm next for the title. And now Amir Albazi kind of muddies that picture because it's a 3-man show now. It's Pantoja, it's Royval, and it's Albazi. And I think that they should do a little gauntlet between them to determine who should be that next person, even though that's kind of unfair given, what's taken place over the last year or whatnot. But, I mean, MMA is not fair, bro. So with that being said, I think the flyweight division right now has more life to it than it has had in recent time, especially now that Moreno has proven to be the new solidified champion. So, prediction, does Amir Albazi claim gold in the next 2 years?
2 years. I like that, Derek. That gives a little more swing. I was hoping you're going to say 1 year because that's a solid no for me. But 2 years, he gives a little bit of that. I think anything can shake out in that top 3, especially when it's only 3 guys in the flyweight division who are looking to fight pretty consistently.
Yeah.
I'd give it a 70% chance. Yeah, we see gold around Albazi's waist. What about you?
If it's 2 years, I think with a 90% confidence rate that Amir Albazi is the new champion. I just think that he has a style that's going to be very, very difficult to beat. And we just saw that the cardio can hold up over 25 minutes with the heavy grappling approach too. Even though he was 1 for 9 on takedowns, he did not look tired at the end. He slowed down a little bit. But, listen, man, watch out for this guy. Fantastic flyweight bout, very technical. And with that being said, let's move on to the barn burner of the night. Alex Bruce Leroy Caceres versus Daniel Pineda. Hey, man, you gotta respect one thing about Daniel Pineda. It's that this dude loses all sense of a gas tank after like 8 minutes in the cage, right? But he doesn't give up on himself, right? There was a couple times where he got clipped in the breadbasket where he could have just wilted over and been like, I don't want to fight. There was a couple times where he felt it and was like, ooh. Took a couple steps back, and then the referee was like, bro, you got to fight. And he's like, bro, I am fighting. Just give me a second. You know what I'm saying? He stayed in there for 15 minutes against Alex Caceres, and he couldn't put him away. You want to know why, AJ? Because they say when you hurt your opponent, a wounded opponent is the most dangerous version of your opponent that exists. And I think Alex Caceres, Bushido, Bruce Lee, martial artist mentality, I think that's what kind of saved him from getting knocked out a couple times, man, because Pineda was swinging for the fences, bro. What do you think?
And another point in which I'm glad a last-second knockdown doesn't steal the round for Pineda on this one, because Bruce Lee were winning the fight, like you said. Amazing shots to the breadback. Those left kicks to the liver are one of the most painful hits you can see. And we even saw it on Pineda's face. He curls over a little, points, smiles, and goes, oh, shit, yeah, that got me. And Caceres, to his point, lit him up a good 3-4 more times to that breadbasket. So Caceres is an absolute dog, man. But like you said, dangerous, and you can see it in him. He started smiling a little bit. He's like, okay, now this is a scrap. Now I'm actually hurting. Now I'm seeing a little bit of stuff. Now this is fun. And I don't remember who got the fight of the night. Do you, Derek?
Yeah, it was this fight.
Okay, I was gonna say if this one didn't get it, this is absolute. That's the one robbery of the night right there. But no, I'm glad this one did, because even when hurt, there were still moments where Pineda had Caceres in danger, and that's what made this a fun fight, man.
Well, that's the thing. I thought he was most in danger when he was the most hurt, because he was throwing those big right hands, and Caceres was trying to find that entry point of like, okay, I can't rush in now, but I have to be strategic about, kind of pinpointing my shots. And that's the thing, is Caceres has never really been this big knockout guy, right? He's been a pitter-patter, touch you in the right spots, and then break you down methodically. Given that he couldn't do that to Pineda here, it was super duper impressive. Because I think when we had showed it before, man, Pineda's not a decision guy. He's winning by finish and he's losing by finish. And this one, going 15 minutes at this stage of his career, I just felt like this was a don't count me out type spot right here. Now, let's talk about the other aspect of it, man. Alex Caceres is a really, really skillful fighter, bro. And now that he's picked up back on a winning streak, I think that we need to answer the question that he was kind of posing before the fight. And he was saying, you guys just don't believe in me. I'm going to go out there and I'm going to do it again. Y'all don't believe in me. I said this fight was a little handcrafted to be in favor of Bruce Leroy, but if we're going to kind of continue going up the rankings, man, we got to think about who he's going to fight next, because the people in front of him right now, 14, Edson Barboza, 13, Dan Ige, 12, Sadiq Youssef, 11, Bryce Mitchell, and 10, Movsar Evloev. I don't want to see him fight any of those guys, bro. If I want to see him fight somebody, I mean, I guess maybe Edson Barboza, but aside from that, bro, is Alex Caceres the top 15 gatekeeper right now, or is the UFC going to start giving him some opportunities to really start climbing?
I think they're going to really start pushing for this guy, especially with the character he presents, the flashy style, the willingness to engage and put yourself in danger. I think they're going to really start promoting Caceres. But to your point, Derek, in that top 15 to top 10, I don't really see many of the fights I'm clamoring for. Now, I mean, we haven't seen this guy fight in a while. I'm not exactly sure what's going on with him, but Ninja Chikadze, excuse me, while I started through that one, that would be a fun fight. The kicks that those dudes present, that's a kind of a kickboxing match that just because I'm, it's the strike. I would love to see that. But you're right. You put him against a Bryce Mitchell. In the Edson Barboza one's going to be fun as well. Sadiq Youssef. Those are all a little more challenging fights and not necessarily ones that I could see being promoted to the highest extent for Alex Caceres. Obviously, unless there's finishes going, but it's a lot of danger in that top 10, even, going above that top 5, the whole top 15. Adds a lot of different aspects for Alex Caceres that we have seen exploited in the past, and hopefully he won't crumble like the potential has been.
Yeah, the tough part about it is that I think Alex Caceres is a very high-risk, low-reward fighter in terms of if you're matched up against him. You don't really get much if you beat him, but if you lose to him, it's like, he's a very skillful opponent. So, yeah, I agree. Giga Chikadze could be definitely a good fight for Caceres, but here's the one thing that I want to touch on before we move on, man. Alex Caceres thrives the best when he fights his fight, when he flows through his fight. I think he did get drawn into a little bit of a dogfight against Pineda, and that kind of worries me against some of these other guys at the higher echelon, because if they could pull him out of his game plan that easy, I mean, things start going awry when you're not that floating, moving type fighter, and that's what gives people problems right there. So big win by Bruce Leroy, valiant performance by both fighters, and a true fight of the night performance right there. All right, man, so now to the first point of contention that we had on our picks right here. Tim Awkward Elliott, man, he gets a big win against Victor Altamirano. And AJ, this did not play out the way that I expected. Tim Elliott did what Tim Elliott always does. Like, this was a classic grinding Tim Elliott performance. But he came in, and this is why you can't take too much out of the pre-fight pressers, because he came in kind of like, I'm going to be stunting on him, flashy, awkward, throwing all types of, everything in the kitchen sink, and then came straight in, blast double. I'm just going to hold you down and throw a little ground and pound. It was a staple. It was a great path to victory. Were you surprised that he was this effective with all of the things going on in life, as we alluded to?
Not so much, Derek. I felt like this was a fallback for Tim Elliott to his classic style. And he himself was not impressed with his performance at the end of the fight. But to me, this was one of those fights that he just needed to win. He needed a dub in his life, nonetheless in his actual life, but his career as well. And it seemed to me that this was one of the ones where like I gotta fight a safe fight and I gotta get this dub. I got people to pay. I got bills. I just moved to Texas. This is a whole not a star-studded performance, but a more of a safe win, which at the end of the day, I mean, when you need a win, you need a win. And Tim Elliott went out there and got it. So I wouldn't say this was one of the ones where I was shocking and like, oh man, this was a crazy performance, or like, what was Tim Elliott doing? This just seemed not safe, because fighting is never safe, but a safer approach to the tactician that Tim Elliott was trying to be.
I think the other thing that plays into that is that when he started feeling some of the stand-up from Altamirano, he said, I need to get this fight down. I can't just keep this standing. He was getting pieced up on the feet, bro, and that was the tough part about the fight, is that at the end of the day, I mean, significant strikes is going to be favored in, 28-19, which doesn't really tell the story of the fight, right? Because insignificant strikes, total strikes, 153 for Elliott, 102 for Altamirano. So they're clearly not counting a lot of the damage that took place there, but a lot of it was little pitter-patter ground and pound shots by both guys. I'll just tell you this much, man. I'm super impressed for Tim Elliott being able to get a classic Tim Elliott win right here, but I was also super disappointed because Altamirano, even though he held his own and he had some good moments on the feet, I just felt like this dude could not stop a takedown to save his life. You know what I mean? Like, Tim Elliott at will would just grab onto his thigh and then he would just kind of like crumble and fall over, and then he would get on top position and have to fight the fight off of his back. I felt like this was more of a missed opportunity for Altamirano than it was a real just like sledgehammer, I'm doing what I want to you, Tim Elliott win. Either way, a win is a win is a win. Where does this go for the path of both of these fighters? Because Tim Elliott, at this point, you have nowhere to go but up. We just talked about the killer's row that is the flyweight division right now. What do they give next to the awkward Tim Elliott?
I'm actually curious if they do give him someone above him, Derek, or if he's going to fight another guy coming up. I feel like that's more in line for Tim Elliott, is to be the one fighting these guys coming up, unless, he gets a great fight against one of the top 10, one of the top 5. I don't really see that happening, though, Derek. Do you?
I lean towards kind of where you're going with this, and I think they're going to feed him all of the young, hungry killers, the Tagir Ulanbekovs, the Muhammad Mukayevs, those types of guys. I mean, look at Victor Altamirano. I don't remember if this was a short notice replacement fight or if they just literally lined him up with this guy. But either way, shoot, man, we'll see what happens. What's the verdict on that?
Short notice.
Who was the original opponent?
Alan Nascimento.
Oh yeah, that's right. Because he did say, he was all like, Nascimento is going to be a much harder. He did kind of talk a little bit of mess on Altamirano, like, oh, this would be an easy fight and all that. Yeah, man. So yeah, give him another good grappler coming up. Nascimento, that would have been a fantastic fight. But either way, last thing here, man, we were kind of ridiculing Tim Elliott at minus 125 with the decision prop, saying that odds makers kind of got this thing completely twisted. He ran away with that decision. We look dumb in revisionist history right here. So how were we so off the mark? I felt that Altamirano on the stand-up could do exactly what he did. I just didn't anticipate him getting taken down at will, like it was nobody's business. What did you think?
I think we missed the mark, Derek, because we were expecting that new style of Tim Elliott that he was coming in, throwing strikes, especially in his last matchup where he might have shot 1 or 2 takedowns, but it was more of an exchange on the feet, the awkward style, the moving, the bobbing, the talking shit, being flashy. I think we were expecting that. Nonetheless, this boy just wanted to win. He wanted a payday. And that's kind of where that decision, maybe that's what the odd makers were seeing, that he just needed this one to get it. Maybe that's where it was. But I was still expecting that flashiness, that awkwardness from Tim Elliott. And obviously not a classic flashy striker like an Alex Caceres, but a different kind of awkward style. And that, we didn't get much of that. We got the I need the win, if you will.
Well, fair play to Tim Elliott. A win is a win is a win, and he got a win on the board right there, baby. All right, man. Young, hungry prospects right here. Karine Silva. She says, you know what? I like finishes, and I actually don't get paid by the hour, by the minute. So let me get her out of here real quick. Karine Silva, man, immediately exploited the weakness of a Ketlen Souza. We said Souza has the ability to disrupt the game plan of Silva, use her, kind of bully approach, get in there and land some big bombs. If I pull up the numbers here, AJ, this is going to be one of those moments for Ketlen Souza where she looks back and just says, I wish I could get that one back. She threw a total of 1 strike and landed it. 0 significant strikes, got taken down, and immediately got her knee popped. Once again, you sit down and grab somebody's ankle like that, the way that the arm was fastened around the ankle of Ketlen Souza, that was a straight ankle lock that we were incoming for. Now, she mentioned I was going for the heel hook. Didn't look to me like she had the positioning for the heel hook. It looked like she just started to kind of take a, forgive me for forgetting some of my anatomical verbiage right here, AJ, but when you take somebody, you're not going up and down, but you're going left and right. Whatever that movement is.
Lateral.
Yes, lateral movement, right? It took a little of the lateral movement while the knee was in place, and it just popped out. So coming from 2 individuals who are familiar with the mechanics of the human body, of course your leg isn't supposed to move that way. But I'm telling you again, AJ, there was not a solidified submission there to have caused that torque unless that knee was already loose, unless that knee had already been popping out in camp, and now you just, it came out. So do you dig into this any further, or do you say Karine Silva has just got the monstrous grip we've ever seen in our entire life? What do you think?
I mean, there's 5 ligaments in your knee that are supposed to help with stability, Derick. And usually we've seen a lot of knee bars happening, and it's not that way that it does pop. Like you said, it just moved laterally. Your leg's not supposed to bend in that valgus state. Sure enough, it did. And it seems like there was a little bit of instability, especially once the leg got straightened and then you just saw it slip and pop out. That's where I think right there. Yeah, don't get me wrong. Karine Silva probably does have that crazy gorilla strength, able to rip it in. But even Michael Bisping and everyone on the thing was saying it was an ankle lock. You're right, Derick. She was going for the ankle. But sure enough, knee pops out, knee bar, win. Yeah, I do think there was some instability there for sure.
Absolutely, because that's the thing. On a straight ankle lock, there's really nothing that is affecting your knee at all. It's literally, it's hurting your Achilles, you know what I mean? It's like an Achilles ankle lock, like right there. So the blade of the wrist is what's causing that uncomfortable feeling in your leg. But, listen, man, Ketlen Souza, she came in for an opportunity, and you're not going to deny an opportunity to the UFC, because you get into the UFC, you get a contract. And I don't think they're going to cut her over her knee popping. However, we do have a rehabilitation stage, so getting to truly see what Ketlen Souza is capable of in the UFC, we're going to have to take a pause on that and push that out. However, Karine Silva right now, especially with back-to-back submission victories in the first round, has solidified herself as a phenom in the flyweight division, a real finisher in the flyweight division, and arguably the most exciting prospect that you could talk about right now, who is not really that top 15 level, you know what I mean? Was this enough to propel her to the top 15? Because I'm going to tell you in advance, I don't think so. I don't think this is enough, but a lot of people are clamoring. So what do you think?
A lot of people are clamoring, Derick, because it's one of the first times they've seen Karine Silva, and nonetheless a finish that quick. Do I think it's enough? No, I do think we need to see more on the feet. You're right. One punch thrown from Souza with no significant strikes? That's not enough to actually make anyone really see the opposition that was presented, if you will. I think Karine Silva needs that little bit of what's the word I'm looking for, where she needs a true fight, an actual opposition where we see her, she's in danger, we see the skills she can do, we can see problems presented to her and how she overcomes that. That's when I'll be clamoring for the top 15 for Karine Silva. Until then, not really much was given.
I think what we're looking for is a showcase bout by Karine Silva. One of those showcase opportunities where you really got to see you got tested, you were able to overcome adversity, and you were able to really still inflict your finishing ways, right? Because if she fights somebody, if you do the other thing that is like, all right, let me just fast track her, give her some top 15 opposition. Let's say, for an example, like if I pull up some of the rankings right now, we throw her against like a Miranda Maverick or Viviane Araujo or something like that, right? And then it goes to a decision, and you see that finishing style isn't as effective as you thought it was against some of these non-top 15 fighters. That's when you ruin a great prospect, man. So I think that they should not fast track her too much. Let her rack up some highlights, man, and then let her earn that top 15, you know what I'm saying? But big win by Karine Silva. Devastating, man. She was actually crying on broadcast after she hurt Souza. So you never want to hurt your opponent. You do, but you don't. You know what I mean? Do you feel what I'm saying there? Like,
you want to hurt them, but you don't want to do long-lasting injury. And
yes.
She was very even my lady was saying, she's like, damn, she didn't want to do that. And I was like, yeah, you don't want to do that. You don't want to cause serious long-term injury. You want to hurt each other. It's a game. That's a sport we play. But a knee. Everybody feels bad when you pop a knee.
And that reminds me of, are you familiar with who Jalen Rose is? Old NBA player. So Jalen Rose, right? He was playing the Lakers one time, playing Kobe, and he was saying he did a little dirty tactic, and I've had it happen to me personally, and it's not fun. Where you shoot a jump shot and somebody sticks their foot underneath your landing space, and then you turn your ankle or whatever. And he did that to Kobe, and everyone's calling him dirty and all that. And he was like, "Listen, my goal was to hurt Kobe. I just wanted to get him out the game. I didn't want to injure him." And I think that's a good application here. You want to hurt your opponent. You don't want a long-lasting injury. Nobody wants that. All right, man. So, are the reports coming out, AJ? I know on broadcast you had mentioned, is anybody else screaming robbery report for this fight? And I can't lie to you. My initial impression was, well, did I watch the same fight my man AJ is watching? I don't know if it's because I picked for Zaleski, but I felt like this was another one of those situations right here where, as I alluded to in the pre-show, Abubakar Nurmagomedov, fantastic, incredible, talented fighter who underperforms on fight night sometimes, man, who I think maybe not underperforms, but overthinks the fight and then doesn't apply the game plan or the strategy that is so effective that he can utilize. So what did you make of this whole entire fiasco right here? Good cage control by Nurmagomedov, right? Not a ton of striking, but all of the damage and explosive movements came from Zaleski the entire fight. So what'd you think?
Well, that's exactly it, Derek. It seemed like when anyone was in danger, it was Nurmagomedov. He was the one catching the knees to the face, catching the big right hands, always looking to to shoot the double and then getting your head stuffed and not really fighting your kind of style of fight. I was curious, and that's why I posted on Twitter, if anybody was calling for a robbery report, because personally, I thought Zaleski won the fight. And going back and watching it again this morning, I still think Zaleski ran away with that third round. He had the most impactful moments of the entire fight. And sure, there was some people on Twitter clamoring for the robbery report. My question to you, Derek, is the name of Nurmagomedov kind of a hindrance in this one? Because you see that last name, you expect him to go in there and maul and smash. And when that doesn't happen, even if you have all the control, even if you have all the pressure, you're still not really getting any finishes. You're not getting any bonuses. Does that last name actually hurt Abubakar in this instance?
I don't think in the eyes of the judges, but I think in the eyes of the fans and what people their expectations. Yeah, man. Like, if you are familiar with Abubakar's career, he's not a bad fighter at all, dude. What is his record? 17-4-1. Like, that is a very good record. That's counting this loss right here, right? Mm-hmm. So if you look at his career, you know that he has a very fundamental and basic kind of game plan to victory right here. The only problem is when you can't secure the takedowns and when the game is evolving in real time. I'm talking about evolving to where that cage control was enough. In Khabib's run, that cage control was enough. But imagine they put this damage on Khabib's career now, this version. So now it's like, all right, well, Khabib, you got to be, smashing these people while you're controlling them. Zaleski dos Santos just had fantastic takedown defense to where he couldn't initiate that game plan. And more than anything else, man, optically just made it ugly, made it dirty, right? So I think that the Nurmagomedov name does hinder him in the eyes of the fans because everybody gets excited when he loses. Oh, I can't wait to see a Nurmagomedov lose. Like, they're hating on him. I just thought that this was a very close fight against a very experienced, tough fighter in Zaleski, and Nurmagomedov just came up short. But I don't see robbery here whatsoever. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I agree with you. This was a great performance by Zaleski dos Santos. And again, another time when Abubakar underperforms.
And but let me ask you this, because in my head, it's not quite that simple, but it is quite that simple, right? I think that the problem is you start feeling the power of Zaleski, and he says, okay, I know I got a knee waiting for me or an uppercut waiting as soon as I try to close that distance. And what was the other big thing that nobody really was pointing out too much, but Dos Santos was eating up Nurmagomedov's legs. So when you're picking, basically, Laura Sanko made a really good point on broadcast, and she had mentioned when anybody steps into the pocket, nothing can be for free. You have to let them know, if you try to close the distance on me, you're going to pay in some way, shape, or form. So I'm going to make you stay out at kicking range. Oh, by the way, that's where I'm best at anyways, in that kicking range. So Zaleski was able to maintain distance, and then when things got close, was able to get the takedown defense to turn them and then back away and create that over and over and over again. Do you think that for Abubakar Nurmagomedov, this was as simple as just a simple underperformance, or do you think that Zaleski is much more of a tricky opponent than people give him credit for just because he's an old grizzled vet?
I think it also, I'd go a little bit more with the latter, Derek. Yes, did Abubakar perform to what he probably can or where he should be in the eyes of everyone else? Not necessarily. But I give a little more credit to Zaleski dos Santos in fighting his fight, staying on his lane, and actually knowing where your opponent's going to be his strongest and using that against him and actually fighting in your lane. Now, that Lorosenko's the one who even said, she's like, he might get a leg kick finish, because you're right. He was chewing up that leg of Nurmagomedov. Now, can Dos Santos repeat this, or can Nurmagomedov grow from this? I genuinely think, Derek, this was a time in which the sport was evolving literally in our eyes. No longer are you able to just grab somebody, put him down, hold him down, and get the win. You actually need that damage, which I love seeing. I love that, because even in Khabib's time, we were talking about Khabib before, but even in his time, he never had one performance bonus. He just had wins, and that's no longer the status quo of today. People are clamoring for those performance bonuses. They're clamoring for the wins, and those are the people who get to the main card more often than not. I think that's where Abubakar's game needs to develop going into fighting these top-tier opponents.
That's right. I couldn't agree more. So with that being said, Zaleski dos Santos, it's been a little while, but my man is back, and he is in the win column, and you got to love to see that. Now, AJ, there is one fight we did not talk about on this main card recap, and I wanted to save it towards the end, and it was simply the Jim Miller-Jesse Butler fight. Jim Miller, short notice opponent. No Jared Gordon, but Jesse Butler steps up. My question to you is this. Jim Miller did something that just old school Jim Miller shouldn't be doing right now, man. You know what I mean? And he put Jesse Butler out with two nice left hands, caught him slipping, caught him coming in, trying to close the distance, be too aggressive. We're going to see my man at UFC 300, right? We're going to see Jim Miller there. What is this win, to me, is almost like, some people are saying this is the most impressive knockout Jim Miller has ever had, right? In his entire career. And do you remember when he knocked out the Ghost Pepper just a couple fights ago? Like, he's kind of starching guys right now, these young up-and-coming guys, at an alarming rate. My question to you is, man, like, Jim Miller, do we see him past UFC 300? Does he, stick around? He's like, no, I'm going to take the Andre Arlovsky approach, which we're going to have to address that situation in a second. But for now, Jim Miller, man, this dude is looking like a stud. All the young guys, he's kind of tearing up these young guys' careers right now. Do we see him even longer than UFC 300?
I think so, Derek, especially because he's not in the heavyweight division like Andre Arlovsky. He's able to fight somewhat. 155. This guy is still in a very, very dangerous division nonetheless. But you don't have that death touch that Andre Arlovsky has to deal with in the heavyweight division. So I do think we're going to see Jim Miller past UFC 300. But does he get all the way to 4? No. Does he get 350? Maybe. What do you think?
Maybe. I will say that I think that at the end of the day, Jim Miller is a guy who's going to determine what the fate of his career looks like. And I have a feeling that he might pull the legit old school. Nah, we're just going to call it. I hit 300. I'm out of here. So with that being said, folks, that is your main card recap. It was... AJ, let me ask you this, man, because I hate to kind of go on this trope time and time again, but this was one of those cards where we tried to hype it up a little bit because we know the talent on the card, but I still felt underwhelmed at the end of it. I did not feel that, you put in time, you invest time into this program because we love it, right? We love watching scraps, but when you watch a full night of scraps and you're like, all right, man, maybe I could have spent these last couple hours doing something better with my time. Do you ever feel ripped off in that situation?
Not so much ripped off, because thankfully I watch the fights with people I love, and so I'm able to have that camaraderie, and it brings people together. But to your point, Derek, no star was born, no real headline was made, nothing positive for any fighter really came out, except for Jim Miller, because he gets a first 23-second knockout at his old man. You can't doubt that, but nothing made me clamoring to really go out and show a new fan this card,
Yeah. There were some good performances, though. And with that being said, let's talk about a couple of these prelims, man, because that's the one part we can't do. We can't discredit some of these fighters who really did something that I didn't think that they would do. And I want to kick it off with Don'Tale Mayes versus Andre Arlovsky. Now, AJ, I'm going to take a step back, and I'm going to say that Andre Arlovsky put on a very classic, typical Andre Arlovsky performance until he didn't. He was running circles around Don'Tale Mayes, and then of all the things that you get hit with, of all the things that puts you out, it's the one major path to victory for Don'Tale Mayes. It's a big right hand. At heavyweight, You can't eat those. You can't eat those at heavyweight. And Arlovski ate it. So we have to ask ourselves the question that was first posed back in the great year of 2009 to Andrei Arlovski. Is it time to hang it up for the great Andrei Arlovski? What do you think?
44 years old, Derick, and last knockout. What did he? Has he been knocked out before? Because I know he got finished by who was it? Tom Aspinall, real quick. Oh,
he got submitted by Tom Aspinall.
Not the worst. Not the worst. A lot of submissions. Not really getting a lot of. Last knockout was Jairzinho Rozenstruik. Is it time for Arlovski to hang it up? Unfortunately, Derick, I think so. I hate to say it. The Pitbull, when I was growing up, was one of my favorite fighters. He had the mouthpiece with the fangs. Yeah. This dude would come in, big, burly guy, foreigner, so nobody knew what he was talking about. That moment or that vision of Andrei Arlovski will always live in my head. And especially, when we were growing up, we were scrapping in the backyard as the fights get done, So that was one thing I'll always remember. And I would like to still have that memory of Andrei Arlovski going forward. I think it might be time to hang it up. You're mid-40s, brother. This is not a young man's or not an old man's game, unfortunately. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I would agree with you, man. I think at this point you have nothing left to prove. Like at this point, you're not fighting for a championship. There was a brief moment where we're like, yo, this dude, because Arlovski literally did break top 15 again, like legitimately. Mm-hmm. So it's not like this is a guy who's like clamoring for anything legit other than I'm fighting because I'm putting these young dudes out and I can still scrap. Can he still do that? Yeah. Do I want to see him do it? No. Do I want to see him leave the UFC and then go bare knuckle box? No. That might be what he does because he's just a madman like that, right? But he might, who knows? At this point, the craziest thing to say is that back in the great year of 2009, after he had lost 4 in a row to Fedor Emelianenko, Brett Rogers, Antonio Silva, Big Nog, and Sergey Karatonov, he had a miraculous run after that. He even had another 5-fight losing streak and then still came back from it. So with that being said, Andrei Arlovski, I think it's time. I think it's time to hang it up, my friend. But that's okay. Don'Tale Mayes, all respect to you, brother. I said there was no path to victory for you, but I forgot it's heavyweight and you got massive power in your hands, so you proved me wrong, good sir. All right, man. The other big fight that we needed to talk about here was the man who opened as a minus 450 favorite, Jamie Mullarkey. He was doing his thing, bro. He was doing his thing. He was kind of showing that there's levels to this. And then Naimov, apologies, brother, but he caught him slipping, caught him closing the distance with his hands down, and that's all it took. That big right hook stunned him, a little bit of ground and pound. He got the finish. Major upset right here. I think this dude, Naimov, is going to be making a big name for himself right here with that victory, and let me just double-check where my man is coming from. My man is coming from Tajikistan, so he's not the first, but he's one of the couple of Tajikistan fighters who were, impressive, man, really impressive. What do you think? What do you think about that?
Man, I don't think anybody was betting for Naimov on this one, Derick. Like you said, plus 400 underdog or minus 400 favorite for Jamie Mullarkey. Man, this is the game we play, brother. You are levels above. You're levels. You're dancing. You're having fun. You're fighting your fight. Next thing you know, you're staring up at the sky because you ate a right hook. That's the button. You can't. I don't think Jamie Mullarkey did anything necessarily wrong in the fight. Homeboy just got caught. You go to sleep. That's what happens.
That's right. A couple other big wins. Elise Reed over Jinyu Fry. This was a tough one just because this was another one you had to pay real close attention to. Jinyu Fry, man, very, very talented fighter. I just think the big problem is she gets a little gun shy sometimes. And even though when she starts landing, she just doesn't throw enough volume, tries to implement too much of the grappling. She brought out the knee pads for the wrestling. It just came up a little short. John Castaneda had to fight through some bombs. Gaffarov, man, throw some bombs for 15 minutes. You held up on the sleeper right there, brother. But Castaneda did enough to get it done. Let's see who we had. Daniel Santos kicked Johnny Munoz in the nuts a bunch of times. Still got the win. We just need somebody to stand with Daniel Santos. That'll be a fun fight. Let's talk about this really quickly, and then we'll get up out of here, man. Damon Blackshear. A lot of people, man, they were going for Lucerda. They were. I don't know, man. We said it. Damon Blackshear was a very underrated fighter. I thought he was going to win this fight. You thought he was going to win this fight. He won the fight handedly. And this is another opportunity where you cannot play jiu-jitsu and MMA. You can't sit back for leg locks and stuff like that because if the opponent gets just enough space, they do what Blackshear did, which is posture up and then start smashing your face in and get the finish. And that's what happened, man. So Damon Blackshear finally got the first win in the UFC. Is this the start of a phenom campaign by Damon Blackshear?
Ooh, a phenom campaign might be a little much to say, Derek. I need one more fight to actually push it into that category. Mm-hmm. But is this the start? Is this the kindling that needs for Damon Blackshear's fire to really grow in the UFC? I think so. We're starting to see it, especially when, like you said, you're in somewhat of a dangerous position. This guy's trying to get submissions on you. You're able to think clearly, see the opposition's holes they're presenting, and impede on them. That is what I like to see from Damon Blackshear.
That's right. All right. Fair play, my friend. Now, lastly, you know what time it is. We have to jump into a quick rankings review, and then we'll hop up out of here. So today, the rankings review isn't going to be the typical rankings review where we talk about the main event, right? The flyweights. But today, AJ, I want to talk actually about that one division we said has a new player in there soon. Not quite yet. Hasn't quite broken top 15. But the women's flyweight division is very intriguing right now, right? So as it stands, Alexa Grasso is the champion, right? And we have a real kind of smorgasbord, I guess you should say. I have no idea if that was the correct way to use that word, but I used it anyways, right? Listen, we got a lot of fighters here at the very top who can all challenge for the belt right now and all have a legitimate opportunity to win. And then we got some fighters at the bottom, some inactive, some active, and some who are kind of just waiting to get booted out of that top 15. So my question is here, Karine Silva, we had already said not enough to break the top 15. But if we're talking about a couple of these fighters, man, Tracy Cortez, very inactive, personal life things, outside of life things, injuries, stuff like that. Miranda Maverick, very skillful fighter, sometimes comes up short, but she has enough to be able to kind of relegate some of these, top 20, top 30, top 40 fighters. Mm-hmm. Macy Barber, Amanda Hebos, Casey O'Neill, like you talk about, that's just the bottom. And you talk about Tyler Santos, Manon Fiorot, Aaron Blanchfield, still got Andrade, technically, who can make a run back to flyweight, especially because she lost that strawweight. Caitlin Chikagian, right? Brother, this is a division right now where I feel like it's almost hard to even break into that top 15. Can Karine Silva, this is the point of the review, can Karine Silva solidify herself as somebody who belongs in this top 15 in her next 3 fights?
3 fights, yes, Derek. 3 fights, yes. I do think she can. Will be forced to face opposition that's going to allow her to show her skills, to show her growth, to show that she does belong. But when you were reading off all these fights, there's only one real fight that comes to mind where I'm like, okay, this would be an interesting matchup. It's that Tracy Cortez fight. Maybe Molly McCann, Meatball Molly McCann, but she's only in my top 15, not even anyone else's. So that still goes back to the point where she's not really top 15 ready, if you will. Derek, what do you think?
I think there's one person in this entire list that I'd like to see her match up with to determine whether she could fit in this category. I'd like to see KGB Lee versus Karine Silva. I think that would be a fun fight. Both got some jiu-jitsu. Both could strike well. Both got chins. Both are tough. Both look to finish. You know what I mean? And KGB Lee has been on a little bit of a rough streak. So she's the one name that stands out to me that I'm like, if anybody could go, it could be her, and that could be replaced, right? Now, you're right. Tracy Cortez, she's just injured. We just got to see her outside of the injury and all that. Miranda Maverick, like I said, very skillful fighter. Here's the reality of the situation here, AJ. I just feel like it's going to be hard for you. Like if I asked you right now, name me 7 solid fighters outside of the top 15 in the women's flyweight division, I think it'd be hard to name those legitimately right now. So I think it's a shallow division, which is why it shouldn't be too hard for Karine Silva to break through. But I'm just saying, like, you could break through, but breaking through isn't enough. Even if Molly McCann can't break through, like, breaking through isn't enough. There's levels to this. That's the theme of this show, I guess. There's levels to this game that we play right here. So with that being said, man, Karine Silva, we're confident that she could break the top 15 in her next 3 fights. We told you, we are the platform that talks about the hidden gems of today and the stars of tomorrow. And Karine Silva, I'll bet a lot of stuff on it. She's going to be one of those phenoms that you're going to have to keep your eyes on. Would you agree, AJ?
Oh, 100%, Derek. And even to double down on that, we've been talking about our boy Bruce Leroy for years now. And everybody's finally jumping on that train. So, folks, make sure you're paying attention to what we're saying now, because these will be the stars of the future that are making you money consistently year in and year out. That's one of my favorite parts about this show, Derek. We get to see the talent grow and develop throughout the years and become who they are supposed to be. You got to love to see it.
You got to love to see it, man. And I will say this. Another thing I'd love to see is that, folks, if you watch this program and you took your side on my side or on AJ's side for your picks, you came up over 500. either way. So that's the beauty of this program too. AJ, we didn't have the same picks. We didn't have the same methodologies of the picks, and we still come out to this even ground, which we find ourselves there just far too often sometimes, you know what I mean? But if we take a step back and then we talk about, just like kind of what the trajectory is looking like throughout the year right now, I want to pull this up really quickly. Hold on, folks. Let me just get this pulled up. So when we break out the trusted Google Sheets to track what are the records been, looking like on the year, right? I want to give you a friendly reminder. This is one of the pages that I keep here. Oops, that's not it. Hold on. Let me get this. Change that display. There we go. All right, folks, you should see this lifetime record right here. You will notice that you have me and you have my man AJ. Here we go. Pull me back up on the screen. So you have lifetime records. I'm at 60% lifetime, and this is tracking from 2021, January 2021. Brother, you didn't start off the strongest, but you have quickly, rapidly brought yourself right back to pace, 56%. So 336 and 219 for me, 315, 240 for my man AJ. That's talking about progress. Where we're looking at the year right now, I mean, if you look at the last couple events, right? 3-2 for this one for me. A bunch of 4-1s. You had that perfect 5-0 at UFC Charlotte, man. I mean, you had two perfect campaigns in the last couple of months, man. We're winning you guys some money. This is kind of the point. And we show you, I have it all tracked here. We show you week in and week out. This is what we do for you, right? So at the end of the day, if you've been betting with us, you're either at a 55% for me or 61 for my man AJ. But AJ, remember, we're not impressed with our own actions right now because we have a goal and the year's not over. We have 6 more months in this year to fulfill it. We need to get, what was that? Was it 70%, right? That's what we're looking for accuracy. Brother. So what is your message to the people who watch this show? Why should they rock with our picks? Yeah, I got statistics, I got analytics, I could show you all day, but we're still aiming for higher achievements right here. So why should the people tune in?
One, Derick, because we are the people that track everything. Don't go lose money on people who are just coming out of the woodworks, telling you things that don't actually matter. They have all these fake stats that don't actually have proof behind it. And we're there. We're staying accountable. We're bringing you 2 shows a week that are doing that. But as well, winning you the money consistently and shooting for a higher goal, always holding ourselves to that higher standard because you deserve it, we deserve it. Anybody that's willing to play this game, bet money, and actually enjoy the great art of fighting, that's what you deserve. Is always trying to progress and get you going forward. Nobody likes a stagnant fighter. Nobody likes stagnant money. So that's why we're your favorite fighter's favorite fight show to actually bring you to that next level. Derick said it best. This show's about levels this week, and we're still climbing that ladder, getting better and better with each week for you folks.
That's right. And I'll tell you, a successful show model is one that runs the way that our show runs, which is if you guys win, we win. And that's the beauty right there. So if we help you, you guys help us, and that's how the show grows. So it is in our best interest to give you the best analytics, the best picks, the best results, the best breakdowns. That's why you go hit up my man AJ on Twitch at twitch.tv/Santa Fe Bomber. That's why you check in his insights. That's why you follow me on Twitter so you can see some of my insights, my thought process. But either way, if there's one place where you could find the home, the hub for everything Bloody Water Podcast, right here on YouTube, baby. YouTube.com/Bloody Water Podcast. Tell your friend to tell your friend, because this is your favorite fighter's favorite fight show. We've said it enough. That is it for us this week, folks. Catch us next week on Friday for the pre-show. For UFC, what is it, AJ? I don't even know. 291? 289. There we go. We got Nunez versus Aldana. Oh, my God. We got a good one on our hands. We'll talk to you folks about it on the next one. That's it for us. And until next time, peace.